It's good day to brew, baby. What is up, YouTube? It's your boy, Millsy. Back with Home Talking Commander, back for another episode of Millsy Brews, the show where I brew a version 1.0 decklist of the Commander artifact on my quest out brew the magic world. You know the motto, baby. It's ABB, always be brewing. That's what we're back to do today. The deck list is going to be down in the description for you below. So I'd really appreciate it if you could interact with the video, like, comment, subscribe, do all that YouTube stuff. I really appreciate it. But today for Jeskai Week, I wanted to reach back to a commander that I haven't dealt with on the channel yet. But I think with all the monks on Tarkir, it just makes a ton of sense to cover this commander during this week. And that's the Archimandrite. A 5-mana 0/5 human artificer, advisor. I apologize. This is the beginning of your upkeep. You gain X life, where X is the number of cards in your hand minus 4. So we got a way to gain life on our upkeep. We're going to pay off that life gain in a lot of ways, both in our upkeep and other times. It says whenever you gain life, each advisor, artificer, and monk you control gets vigilance and +X/+O until in turn, where X is the amount of life you've gained. And then we can tap 3 of any of those types to draw a card. Of course, this is really fun because we're back on Tarkir. We've got a couple really interesting new monks. We do have Artificer and Advisors, 2 very interesting creature types. I've kind of leaned this a little bit more towards the monks, especially because there's a way to make monk tokens, right? So they're going to allow us to help draw cards. But I could see you definitely putting in some Artificers like Urza could be very useful in a deck like this with certain ways to do things like that. So again, very monk heavy, but we could still take advantage. And just to think the deck wants to do, gain life, because remember, our creatures get a buff when we gain life. And there's a lot of ways we can talk about to do that. And then draw cards, because remember, if we can have a big hand size at the start of our turn, we gain life, right? That's hopefully a snake eating its tail. They can really help each other out in those 2 abilities to give us some advantage. I want to say a quick thank you to the channel members. Thank you so much for watching the channel. If you're interested in supporting the channel, if you're interested in seeing all of our videos early for just $1 a month, check it out in a link down below. But as far as the monks go, man, there's some pretty great options. Of course, we got the old Elsha. Let's just look at the top card of our library at any time and play non-creature spells from the top of our library as though it had flash. I think the one thing we really like is the new Elsha, allowing it to make monk tokens whenever it hits a player in combat and has prowess. I got a great target for that +X/+O, meaning that we could probably just make a bunch of monks and then tap them right before our turn and they untap, right, to draw cards. Flamehold Grappler is a 3-mana 3/3 that with first strike that whenever it enters we could just copy the next thing we cast. Again, very useful in a lot of ways. It's not just for non-creature spells. It could be a lot of things that you could copy with the Grappler. Ishai grows and has flying for every opponent that casts a spell. Could be a nice big threat in the air. Jeskai Brushmaster just is a double striking prowesser that could get pretty big, and with double strike could definitely need it to be blocked and be a threat to our opponent. Of course, we have the Narset from Aftermath, one of probably our best monks in the deck, probably alongside Elsha, and one we'll talk about on the next slide. Whenever it attacks, exile target non-creature non-land card with a mana value less than her power from a graveyard and play it. You can copy it. You pay the cost. Sorry, you can cast the copy without paying its mana cost. Great way to start digging things back from our graveyard. Allows us to kind of really get 2 spells cast out of 1 spell, right? Making sure that we can use things again when they're important, and giving our whole board prowess is huge, just so they get even bigger and harder to deal with. Of course, Rock's Faithbender is another nice one. Whenever we gain life, we gain twice that much life instead, making sure that we get an even bigger buff. The next monk that I really like is Runetail, Kitsune Ascendant. Whenever we have 30 or more life, we flip it, which if we are starting off early is going to flip it automatically, and it flips into a enchantment that just says prevent all damage will be dealt to creatures we control, just allowing them to really just attack for free, making sure they get in and deal big damage. Shu Yun, whenever we cast a non-creature spell, we can pay 2 hybrid Boros mana. If we give a creature double strike till a turn, could be fun for something like Elsha, but just some of our other creatures as we get them online and get going. Soulfire Grandmaster gives all of our instants and sorceries lifelink. It has lifelink, and then we can pay to have the next time we cast instant or sorcery, just have it come back into our hand instead of our graveyard as it resolves. It's just a very interesting ability. Sunset Strike Master becoming a mana dork for us, tapping for a red. And then, of course, the new Taigum is very interesting. Whenever you cast that second spell each turn, copy it and exile the original with 4 time counters on it, giving it suspend, right, to get it back later and get some more value. But I think life gain is where our deck's going to become really good, making our creatures really difficult to deal with. There's a lot of ways we could do this. I like something like a Johnny Strength of the Pride. It's +1 gains you life equal to the number of creatures you control, plus the number of planeswalkers you control. Again, we have a deck that's trying to make these monk tokens with some of those creatures we had and something like Monastery Mentor. So we're going to have creatures sitting around, and I think it makes sense to just gain a bunch of life and give ourselves a big buff. Also, a Johnny can be a nice one-sided board wipe as long as we hit a certain life total. Beacon of Immortality can just double our life total and shuffle itself back in. Again, a massive amount of buff to all of our creatures. The wider our board state, the worse for our opponent's Beacon of Immortality could be. Congregate just lets us gain 2 life for each creature on the battlefield. Again, huge for a massive buff, right? Gain us a ton of life. At minimum, I mean, the life's great, right? But at maximum, you're getting that buff to your entire board. Heliod's Intervention, gaining us twice X life. Union of the Third Path, letting us draw a card and gain a life equal to the number of cards in our hand. Again, draws us for the purposes of, Archimandrite's first ability, and then, just allows us to gain life. And then Riot Control, a nice defensive, but often, could be good at the same time. Gain a life for each creature our opponents control, and then prevent all damage would be dealt to us this turn. Again, if it was on somebody's turn where they were attacking, but if not, maybe gain 5-6 life minimum, hopefully in an average game of Commander, and then just get that buff, right, and become really useful to us, right? Caduceus can just give a creature indestructible and +5/+5 probably most of the time in this deck, since we're going to be gaining life, and then damage is prevented to it. Again, I think this is great on that Elsha that makes the monks, but this is also great on the Archimandrite, just stopping it from getting removed by some things, right? Ivory Tower, basically its ability is the exact copy of the Archimandrite's first ability, right? Gaining us X life, where X is the number of cards in our hand -4. Again, just giving us another trigger of that for life gain for Archimandrite to see to buff our creatures. Venser's Journal gains us life for each card in the hand at our start of our upkeep and gives us no maximum hand size. Again, perfect, right? So we can trigger it and Archimandrite to gain us all that life. Cleric class, whenever we gain life, we gain that life +1. But once we level it up, we can start putting counters on creatures whenever we gain life, just to make them a little bit better. And then Path of Bravery, whenever we attack with one more creatures, we gain life equal to the number of attacking creatures, right? A very dangerous ability, right? Because now all our creatures are getting better in combat. And then everything gets +1/+1 if we have greater than or equal life to our starting life total. I mean, we still want to care about some card draw, right? Because truthfully, Archimandrite can still care about, card draw at the beginning of our turn. So if you think like Sphinx's Revelation that just draws and gains us life, Kindred Discovery is just going to draw us a card whenever a monk comes in or whenever we attack with a monk. Both of those are going to be very easy to do. Of course, we're playing things like Mystic Remora and Rhystic Study to draw cards when our opponents cast spells to try to get our hand settled up for the start of our turn. Again, any cards we draw on our opponent's turn, remember, won't affect our maximum hand size, meaning we can get a nice big buff when it comes back to our turn. Whirlwind of Thought, drawing us cards whenever we cast non-creature spells. And then Wizard's class is really fun, just for blue mana, eliminating our maximum hand size. Level 2 draws some cards, then at level 4, whenever we draw cards, we get to put a counter on a creature we control, just spreading out those counters, right? Really buffing our board. At the end of the day, I think this life gain and the card draw are going to just help work hand in hand to buff all of our monks and make them real threats. Ideally, I think it's things like Trample or Flying that are going to be the key reasons to, or Lifelink, that would be the key things to set us apart when we're doing all this. And we have spells to do that. That new Frostcliff Siege, right, giving our whole board haste and trample. There are ways to build around this system to make it even better for us and even worse for our opponents. But I've said it before in the show, and I'll say it again, no deck's ever complete. This is my version 1.0 shot at the Archimandrite. And I think in testing, I'd be looking to see would something like Leyline of Hope work with it? I think it does, right? Getting that much life +1 whenever we gain life, buffing all of our creatures. It seems really good. I just kind of ran out of spots for these payoffy type cards because I was trying to make sure we have a good mix of gaining life and making more monks. I love the idea of Jeskai Charm, just giving our whole board +1/+1 in lifelink. Basically, my thought here is you go into combat, you've already given these buffs to your monks, they go gain you an astronomically large amount of life, probably back for it. Yeah, it buffs your creatures up even more, and you probably don't get to benefit it, but the point is you're just swelling up your life total to protect you from the backswings. And I love the idea of Masako letting us have our block creatures or our tap creatures blocked as though they weren't untapped. Could be fun, right? To just block up with some of your monks. I just didn't put her in there because I was trying to stream towards monk tribal a little bit more. But I think she's a great example of an advisor that I think would work really well for our game plan. But let's get into our playtest. Remember, the goal of playtest on our channel is not to find magical Christmas land. It's not to show off our best plays, but it's to get in some gameplay scenarios, understand what we are looking for. Here we're keeping the 3-lander with Soul Ring, Faithful Mending for some card drawing, life gain. Well, Lost Dream says whenever we gain life, we can play X, where X is less than or equal to the amount of life we've gained and we draw that many cards. And then Quarry Mountain Stalwart, whenever we cast our second spell each turn, everybody loses 2 and we gain 2. So I think on turn 2, or turn 1, sorry, we're just getting Soul Ring in. Turn 2, I love that. You give D of getting Decanter down. Right, we just don't have enough mana to do anything after that. But I think it sets us up, gives us no maximum hand size, and sets us up right for a future turn. Here, the Archimandrite could be good, although we're just not getting too much quite yet. But I feel like it could be good to get it down. Start of our turn, we would gain 1. But again, not very useful for the purposes of right now because we don't have a ton of creatures to take advantage of it. There we see Jeskai Brushmaster. I do believe right now we could play the Stalwart and the Brushmaster. So play the Stalwart first, then the Brushmaster. That'll get the drain on our opponents. And now we're getting some monks, right, to be able to take advantage of having these abilities. Unfortunately, on our upkeep here, the Archimandrite wouldn't, the next turn wouldn't have a ton of buff. But it's got a +3 buff. It could take an attack if we wanted to. But again, not too much of a big buff on our turn here from the Archimandrite. But I think we just want to keep pressuring things out of the battlefield. Here we play the Monastery Mentor. We got 4 mana left. We could Faithless Spending the draw. We could well to get the cast. But really, I just want to get the Monastery Mentor task off here to get a monk. We get to draw 2, pitch 2. So we gain 2 life first, so +2/+0 to everything. Then we draw 2, and then we pitch 2. The well, I feel like, is going to become important at this point because we're going to help. Going to gain some life. So I think I'll just pitch the Stroke and the Generous Gift. Well, I think we want to keep some removal, right? Back to our turn. No life gain, unfortunately. I think I would get a monk. I could Generous Gift something on my turn to make it worth it. It might be worth it to take a bigger attack this turn and get that flurry, right? Buffalo our creatures to get in for an attack. But we really need to gain life, right? Because if I cast the spell, I can't pay the 2 from the well, right, to draw 2 cards. We really want to start dumping mana into the well to start drawing cards, right? And I have no other way to gain life quite yet. So I think we'll pass just to see what we can get on our turn. I mean, we could take some big attacks. We gain 2 life this turn. So, I mean, this is still a 5/3. This is still a 4/4 double strike. I mean, there's still attacks, right? The buff on some of the prowess, right, with the spells. There's still some attacks we can make. They're just not as good as I'd kind of hoped. We could also, instead of doing that, we could just not attack and then before our turn tap down to draw 2 cards, right, with the Archimandrite's ability, right? Now, right, coming back to our turn, we don't get the life, but ooh, now we see Elsha, now we see a Johnny. He's going to gain us a ton of life. So if I play a Johnny for 4, and I tick a Johnny up +1, I'm going to gain 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 life, right? I've got 4 mana left. I'm just going to pay all 4 of it into the well to draw 4 cards, right? Now we're in good shape. We've buffed up our life total. We're getting +4/+0. That would have given us a monk token. And now our hands swole up for next turn, right, where we can do that. Now, if we don't well, we could have just played Elsha and then tried to well next turn on the Ajani. But again, we still got great attacks this turn to get in there. And then in return, we have Sage of the Sky. So if it's the second thing we cast, we get a copy of it. I think we Elsha, right? Sorry, we would have gained 3 life that turns. We're already at +3/+0. There's that. I don't think I have any way to give her haste that I can think of off the top of my library, off the top of my head. So we just go Sage, make the copy of Sage, because something was cast before it, right? Now we tick up a Johnny gain 3, 6, 10, right? I'd probably put like 3 of it into the well just to draw. Take the big attack, right? Elsha can't attack, and neither can the Sages, but these are all huge threats, right? And I think we're building a nice board state now where as soon as Elsha starts getting us more monks, I think the game's just under dangerous control for us, right? As those monks just start threatening every turn to hit harder and harder. Let's get into playtest number 2. Keep it a 3-lander with Cleric class, the Strike Master, Generous Gift, and that Congregate for the life gain. Didn't mean to do that. Turn 1, there's Elsha. Interesting. Not a bad start. Elsha's going to be great, right? Especially in these early turns. Here I'm thinking the Sunstriker. Got nothing to do there. Ooh, Soul Ring, huh? My thought was Monastery play Elsha, but I think my answer now is Soul Ring Elsha, right? Elsha can still get cast off these 3, and then the Soul Ring down from the Deserted Beach. Hopefully set us up for next turn, right? Here. Just put the Monastery in and cast Archimandrite, great. I don't think any way we can gain a life this turn, but that's okay. I think we're just setting up here. Start of our turn, we can't gain life of Archimandrite, but we do have to Congregate. So at minimum, we're gaining 6 life. Right, but if any of if our opponents have any better, right, it could be 10 or 12 life, and now Elsha's a 14-2 with prowess with trample, right, attacking in, probably just netting us a ton of monks, right, and not arbitrarily large amount of monks. We would have gained, well, I guess probably in the north neighborhood of like 15 life, but the point is, now you got all these monks that I can now use on my opponent's turns to block, probably a couple card draws, right? And then as it comes back to our turn, we're gaining 2 life there, which is a +2 to everything. Here we've got the Frostcliff Siege to give them a little bit of a buff and trample, right? Got the Quarry Steelcutter. So they're already 3/1s, right? This would give them trample, but I'm thinking guess just tick up the Cleric class so we can start. My thought is when we start gaining life, then we can start putting counters on Elsha, right? So she's not in so much trouble. I guess the other thing we could have done that I just realized is in response to Archimandrite's trigger, we could have tapped down some. We could have tapped down some monks to draw a few more cards, but oh well. Elsha's still got a decent attack this turn, and again, on our opponent's turns, right, we draw a couple more. Coming back to our turn, right, gaining 4 or 5. They all get that buff, right? The Runetail could come in and immediately flip over to prevent that damage to our opponents. All Homerites would let us gain double life. But again, at this point, unless somebody has anything to stop, right, the monk train, right, it's just going to take over that game for us in that scenario. Let's get into playtest number 3, keeping a 4-lander with Elsha, Quarry Steelcutter, and a Chroma's Will. Quarry Steelcutter seems interesting, just making us more monks every time we get to that second spell, and then handing out Trample seems huge, especially if you can get a creature right nice and buffed up. I'm thinking the tap land, play the Quarry Steelcutter, play Elsha, right? Just getting up our curve, right? Making sure we have access to stuff. Here we'd have the Union of the Path, but again, it's not as good without the Archimandrite down, right? That's the thing we really want to get down. Because right now we get no buff to Elsha. So I think we just kind of have to wait, unfortunately. Sorry, we could attach right to Elsha, and I guess maybe then we have an attack. But here I'm just thinking the Archimandrite, right? Get it down. Now coming into our next turn, we're drawing 1 card, right? So, or we're gaining 1 life, right? So that's +1, right, already. And then as we come into our next turn, we could probably now would make the more sense to Union of the Path. Because now we would what? If we Union of the Path, that's a prowess trigger on her. So she was a 2/1, 3/2, 4/3 because of the Quarry Steelcutter. Draw a card, gain 5, so she's a 9/3. with Trample, making us a bunch of monks this turn, right? And then the Archimandrite is buffed up too, right? Same thing, 5 plus 1, so 6, right? And then, again, I don't see where we don't probably make at least 7 or 8 monks off that. The Flurry could go off if we cast, Show Yoon or something in main 2. But I kind of like the idea of just leaving up some removal. Again, tap those on our opponent's turns for some draws. Come back to our turn. Right now we're gaining 3 life. And then, Venser's Journal for the life gain. Prowess trigger on Alesha. I guess we could go something like Ponder, but again, I kind of want to just leave it well, you do that, or I guess we Chroma's Will. Right, we've already gained 3, so all these are 4/1s, right? A Chroma's Will would probably potentially maybe just end the game here, depending on what our opponents have, giving them double striking and lifelink. Right, 8, 16, 24, 32, 40. That's 1 player's worth, probably 2 players out this turn because the Chroma's Will there, right? And they all have prowess, so they're even bigger. There actually would be 5/2s instead of 4/1s, right? And it's probably just a safe enough way to end that one, right? Unless anybody's removed those pieces. It's hard sometimes to make those decisions because it's like, someone's probably going to have removal, but it's like, we got to see it. We got to see it without the removal sometimes to understand, right? What are you careening towards? What are you working towards as you build your boards up? Here we're keeping a 3-liner with that Decanter for no maximum hand size, Venser, Journal again. We see that Preordain, and then Pongify for some removal. So here I'm thinking we just work our way up to this. We'll just do the Preordain just to see what we see. I like Elsha. I like the Riot Control. Elsha lets us cast things off the top, right? Non-creature spells off the top. I think I'm content with both of them for now. Turn 3, play the Decanter, right? Start ramping us up a little bit more. Turn 4, I guess we could get Elsha down. Just start looking at the top. We see a land on top. We could flash speed them. Another land, but that's okay. Archimandrite doesn't seem bad now. 1 mana left, so we could hold up the Pongify. Come back to our turn. We're gaining 1 life this turn because of the 5 cards in hand. 7 mana. We see Mantis Rider, another monk. Venser's could be fun to really get us that life gain. My thought. And then they could tax them and take extra run, but I don't think they really want to. Then now we're getting 4 here and 0 from Archimandrite, so they're +4, +0 right now, so they got some good stats there. Here I'm thinking about just like the Mantis Rider, right? Flying Vigilance Haste could be a nice attacker, right, for that. Think about leaving up the Riot Control, maybe. Or going for, like, Jeskai Ascendancy. Take the attacks, right, with the buffs this turn. Mantis Rider, although it doesn't get any of the buffs, could be there. We could also leave the Ascendancy in our hand for more of a Venser trigger. But I think we need to start digging deeper. There's the Beacon. I'm 1 mana off the Beacon, but the Beacon just seems great here on the next turn, right? Because on our next turn, we gained 3 on the Venser's Journal. If I Beacon right now, this being in the air could make it lethal on somebody, right? Elsha just could be a nice attack on somebody. Same thing with the Archimandrite just becoming huge threats. I'm thinking that we're probably at, 50 right now? You probably double to 100. This becomes a lethal threat in the air. And both of these could just become really lethal threats, right? Attack in, Beacon shuffles back in. And then, we're just in potentially killer shape there. And as we come back to our turn again, no life cost on the Archimandrite, 3 for the Venser's Journal. What's on top? Mountain, okay. I guess we could do the Stalwart, the Jeskai Ascendancy again, just to get some card draw going. And again, a little bit slower this time around, but I think we saw some interesting combinations, especially with that Beacon. We just didn't follow it up with anything that's really going to help us hit through too hard. But I think that's what we need to see in playtesting and testing to know if we need to go back to the drawing board, right, to change up some things. But let me know, what do you think of the Archimandrite down in the comment section below. Very interesting card. I think it's an interesting commander, especially with all the new monks and the new, all the life gain support that exists out there. There's a lot of interesting ways to take it. I'd love to know if you've messed around with it and what you've done, and I catch you on the next one.